Good morning. This is Kurt Schroeder from Kurt's Florida Garden. Orchids are very popular, obviously in the South when you can grow them outside, and we're in Sarasota, Florida. I have collected these orchids over the past 3 years from really orchids that have been cut or discarded from the flower shop. So I want to just tell you a little bit about what's going on. Today's March 8th, 2021. These orchids started to spike in early December. They were a little bit retarded, as we would say, during the real cold period because it got really almost unseasonably cool for several weeks down here in January. So instead of them developing at a normal rate, they kind of halted. This is obviously a white phalaenopsis orchid, also called the moth orchid, and it is multi-branched, and it started to bloom probably 2 weeks ago. To give this area, this small area, some architectural interest, I purchased these terracotta conical pots, and that's all I use for my orchids. It really helps in not overwatering because in addition to the terracotta not being glazed, there are several holes, and at a distance it's very pleasant to even look at the orchids with foliage only during the season. Here are some smaller orchids. As you can see, the buds are starting to swell. I'm going to have several blooms on what I call a very small or miniature phalaenopsis plant. Down here is a mini phalaenopsis plant. Again, buds swollen, getting ready to bloom. Orchids have a mind of their own. As you know, it's the largest number of species in any genera in the plant kingdom. There are about 30,000 or more orchid species. This plant has a very upright form, again multi-branched, and it will eventually bloom and come out over time. Here are a couple more that are similar to what I just showed you, again in that same type of pot to give a cohesive look in the garden. By the way, these are hanging under live oak trees, and these live oak trees that are really forming most of the shade canopy are probably at the lowest leaf count right now because they're exfoliating, dropping their leaves with new leaves coming on. This is a dendrobium plant. It started to bloom about a week ago. It's just incredible right now, and it's really a showstopper. Here is a offshoot or a little a cutting of the larger one that I put in here a couple years ago. And I can tell you from my records, exactly 2 years ago, this same date, this orchid was blooming. So it's an early bloomer. Here are some more, not very remarkable right now, but buds getting ready to open. And just as a underplanting, and it's a plant we kind of inherited, is a beautiful hot pink fuchsia colored azalea plant that's been in bloom for about a week. Thank you very much for coming to Kurt's Florida Garden. And I also get questions about what potting mix I use. I use a combination prepackaged of bark, perlite, and it has a little bit of other moss mixtures in it. And it's great because it holds the orchid in but gives full drainage for these epiphytes. Thank you very much.